Welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have participants from different parts of the world, whether you're joining us live today or watching later on. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the Spiritist Talk series, which is promoted by the U.S. Spiritist Federation every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am here delighted to host this talk presented by João Korngold, who will be speaking on the topic loving life. Love the topic, João. But let's give João a very warm welcome. And before we begin, please allow me to introduce him. João began studying Spiritism more than 30 years ago. Yes, 3 decades ago, and has been very active as one of the directors of the mediumship Spiritist meetings at SGNY. Sorry, João, SGNY for the past 20 years. He's also responsible for the study groups focusing on the basic books by Spiritism and on the Andre Luiz Collection. João gives talks on Spiritism in both English and Portuguese. He's an engineer and works as a banker. So, for all of you who are here today, please feel free to send your questions at any time during the presentation using the chat window. João Korngold has set aside time at the end to address your comments and questions. Thank you so much, João.
Thank you, Marcia. So today we chose this topic based on this book called Loving Life by Richard Simonetti, because this week the Tri-State Spiritist Federation here in the region, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, is celebrating the 27th Spiritist Week, and the theme of the week is suicide prevention. So we are talking here in the region with several different lectures and presentations and talks throughout the region in the different Spiritist centers on the subject of suicide. And when we talk about suicide, which is a very challenging subject, very difficult subject to approach for many people, for those that lost loved ones, for those that have gone through this challenge, this struggle in this life or in past lives, because many of us are suicides from past lives or were involved in losing loved ones to suicide. It's always a challenge to talk about the subject. And in the Spiritist literature, the best book to study and learn more about the consequences of suicide in the spiritual world is the book by Ivone Pereira, Memoirs of a Suicide, by the Spirit Camilo Castelo Branco. But it's a dense book. It's a big book, difficult. A lot of people have difficulty in studying and reading the book. I highly recommend. I think it's a wonderful book that has, for those that are serious and interested in studying Spiritism and going deeper into understanding life in the spiritual world and the consequences of our actions here, it's important that we read and study the book. But Loving Life, it's a different book, because Richard Simonetti, for those who don't know him, he's well known outside Brazil for the book Who's Afraid of Death, that has been published in English for a very long time, sold a lot of copies throughout the world. So he's well known for that book. This was the last book that he wrote before discarnating in 2018. And we at the United States Spiritist Federation and Spiritist Group of New York had the privilege of translating this book and publishing right before he returned to the spiritual world. And Richard Simonetti, first, he's not a medium. He was not a medium, so this is not a psychographic book. This is a novel that he wrote based on real cases, but that he adapted for a book telling a story. We're not going to cover the book here because our objective here is to talk about the beautiful messages that Richard Simonetti left to us. But we are going to go through the chapters, give an idea of what the book is about and the different stories that he addresses in the book, but focusing mostly on the messages that he left to us that we're going to find in each slide that we're going to present. So we start with this one when he says, life is the greatest blessing that God granted us. It is in the school of time that we learn to be immortal. So we need here to be living this life, that this is a blessed opportunity, and that's what he reinforces to us. So the book starts with Susanna, who is a disillusioned young woman that considers ending her life. She's a teacher in high school, and she lost her mother 6 months before the book starts. Her boyfriend leaves her, breaks up with her, so she's very downcast, and she decides that suddenly this comes to her mind that she's going to end her life. For those that live in São Paulo or know São Paulo, she decides to go to the Viaduto do Chá, the T bridge there in the center of São Paulo, to throw herself from the bridge, and she grabs a cab. And at the moment she gets in the cab, the taxi driver tells her, Susanna, your mother Rosalia is here telling you not to do anything crazy. And she gets very surprised. She never mentioned to anyone. It was only a thought. And how this taxi driver, his name is José Maria, knew his mother, her mother, or what she was thinking. And then he explains to her that he receives messages from the spirits, and the moment she entered in the cab, her mother entered with her, and through his mediumship was communicating with her. The title of the chapter, Dio sia lodato, is God be blessed in Italian. He tells her that he's a descendant from Italian family, and that's the only phrase he knows in Italian. Simonetti tells us, we are never alone. God always finds a way to reach us, even when we close our hearts. Meaning, many times when we are feeling alone, feeling lost, feeling out of options, we have to remember that we are never alone. There is always, first and foremost, our guardian angel, our protecting spirit that is always following us, always trying to help and assist us, and our loved ones that have departed. And God is always with us and always finds a way to reach us, even when we close our hearts. So in the second chapter, she learns about one of her students that commit suicide, and she feels guilty for not having helped him because she saw that he was not doing well, and then she starts feeling guilty for not having helped him, and decides to dedicate herself to help those in need. Simonetti tells us that the pain we see in others is an appeal from God to our hearts so that we may love more. Meaning, we have to go out and help those in need. It is the only way that we are going to evolve morally and intellectually, is following the teachings of Spiritism. Without charity, there is no salvation. So every pain that we see in others is an opportunity for our inner growth. So we need to pay attention to what's happening around us. The most value asset that we have is time. So we need to dedicate and give our time to others so we can progress, because when we are helping others, we are really helping ourselves. So she goes to the Spiritist Center that José Maria recommends her. She's looking for answers for these things that have happened to her, and then there she finds, she starts learning about the concepts of Spiritism and starts receiving comfort on the immortality of the soul, learning. She comes from an evangelical family, but she was not very religious at the time in terms of going to the temple. Simonetti tells us, Spiritism does not suppress pain, but illuminates the path of those who suffer. So Spiritism is not didn't come to eliminate our pain, but to help us understand the reasons why, and to help us, to comfort us, and to illuminate our path. So a lot of times, those that work in Spiritist centers, especially in fraternal assistance, they see people that come to a Spiritist center because they were recommended by a friend, by someone, trying to find a miracle. And Spiritism does not produce miracles. Spiritism, what it does is it gives us the tools to deal with our struggles, to deal with our difficulties, but it's not going to remove the difficulties from our journey. That's a task that we have to do by ourselves. So she attends a lecture, it's a Saturday, and the lecture is about suicide. And she receives a message from her deceased brother, that Olavo, that tells her that he did not kill himself, and that he is in a good place and with his mother, her mother. He's and her mother. And she's very surprised because he had died some years ago, and everybody thought that he killed himself. So she was very surprised to hear from him through José Maria, the medium, that he didn't kill himself, and especially that he was in a good place. So that was a comfort to her. Simonetti tells us, and that's very important, that the revelation from the beyond is not a spectacle. It is consolation, a lesson of love, and responsibility. A lot of people go to Spiritist centers, to mediums, to psychics, interested in the spectacle and not really interested in the message. And what Simonetti is trying to tell us is that we have to focus on the message. The message is from serious spirits, come to help us, to assist us, to give us comfort. So that's what we have to remember. So she is more balanced now, and she starts getting closer to Carlos, who gave the talk that she attended on the Saturday, and José Maria, the taxi driver, both work at the center. And she starts becoming involved in study and in the charitable tasks of the center, beginning a new phase of learning. Simonetti tells us that to renew oneself is to accept that God writes straight, even through our crooked lines. And again, we make a lot of mistakes on our journey. We hesitate, we doubt ourselves, we question ourselves, but the message that Simonetti reminds us is that God is in control. God knows what's best for us. Even if we don't know what's best for us, God knows what's best for us, and it's going to give us always what we need, not necessarily what we want. We have to remember that. Sometimes we want things that are not the best for us on our eternal journey that is as eternal spirits. We have incarnations, we have the physical lives, we have the physical body that we wear for a physical life, then we go back to the spiritual world, and our journey continues as eternal spirits. So God, through the natural laws, the perfect laws, always knows what's best for us. So Susana and Carlos start to have a closer relationship out of friendship, respect, and start to developing love for each other. But Carlos keeps his distance from her and explains to her he came to Spiritism through the suicide of his former wife. She killed herself. Carlos was very disillusioned and felt guilty because he thought that he was responsible because he didn't respected her as a wife, and she ended up killing herself, and he feels guilty, so he doesn't want to commit to a new relationship. He went to start studying Spiritism after that. So both of them understand the value of spiritual love above mere human passions, and decide to wait until Carlos overcomes his guilty feelings and his trauma to enter into any sort of relationship. And then Simonetti tells us that love is the feeling that comes closest to God, because it is the essence of God's creation. We are always trying to learn how to love one another as eternal spirits, the true love, not the physical love, but the eternal love that connects us with all of our loved ones. So a new task develops at the center, a group to support people with suicidal tendencies, and Susana decides to participate and thinks that this mission is connected to her own story. Simonetti tells us, those who occupy themselves with easing someone else's pain find healing for their own wounds. So what happens many times is that we think that our problems are the worst problems in the world, and when we go out and we find other people's problems and try to help and find interest in other people's problems, we'll find that our problems are just problems. They are not the worst thing that is happening in the world, that everything is, we have the ability to overcome everything, as Mother Mary told Chico Xavier once when he was struggling a lot. She sent a message to him, everything passes, this will also pass, which is something that we have to always remember when we are facing some challenges, some difficulties. All the problems we have in our lives are temporary, and they will end, and they will serve as learning opportunities. How we face these problems is what is going to make us grow more or less according on how we react. Resignation, acceptance. Again, resignation here, Spiritism teaches us, is active resignation, trying to fight and overcome the problem with all our strength and all our possibilities, but understanding that if we cannot, we have to accept, we have to resignate ourselves. And then this very interesting chapter, this letter that comes through the Spiritist Center, and they take to this doctor who is in despair and plans to commit suicide, but is deterred by a letter psychographed by his discarnated wife. They go to his house. He never talked to anyone about it. He's very surprised. He was trying to commit suicide disguised as a heart attack, and he's very surprised to receive this letter from his discarnated wife. Simonetti tells us here to remind us that death does not destroy feelings, only purifies them. So the letter, this wife tells the doctor, continue to do your work. Our separation is temporary, but if you go ahead with this act that you are thinking, then the separation will be much longer and the reunion much more difficult. Because again, death is just a passage from this plane of existence to another plane of existence. There is one phrase that I found from Emmanuel when I was preparing this presentation. In the book, it's not translated into English. The book is called Messages from the Beyond, and the chapter is Immortality. And Emmanuel tells us, my son, you will leave death as many times as necessary. You face death as many times as necessary, but you will never leave life. Life is eternal. It's a reminder for all of us. This is a very interesting chapter of an obsessor who was a victim in a past life and is assisted during a mediumistic meeting, gives a communication, and is guided through the dialoguer to understand what happened to him. And it's very interesting because he's communicating through one medium and his father communicates through another medium and talks to him, and through the conversation he liberates himself from the chains of hatred and revenge. Simonetti tells us that to forgive is to free the other from the prison of resentment and to discover that we ourselves were the prisoners. Again, we carry this hatred, this desire of revenge towards others that sometimes do not even know or are aware of this hatred that we have, or it's irrelevant to them, but we are carrying this and causing harm to ourselves, poisoning ourselves. Another phrase from Chico Xavier that I like very much is when he says that when you hate someone, you are sending the copy and you are keeping the original. So you are doing more harm to yourself than to those that you are hating or that you want revenge to. And on this chapter, there is a book that is given to a lady that also is thinking about suicide, a former teacher of her that she considered a guide and a model that had discarnated some 3-4 years ago, left a book with a dedication to her, and Susanna goes to her address and gives the book. It's the Spirit's book. The teacher left the book at the Spiritist Center. The book was left there for 3 years. Susanna tells her, apologizes, tells that the book was lost, and then she opens the book. There is a dedication, an inscription, dedicatory message from the teacher telling her about the importance of the book, the importance of the lessons that he learned from the book. She's very surprised. She, of course, never read the book, and this starts reading the book and becomes very impressed, and of course changes her mind about committing suicide. Simonetti tells us, no one crosses our path by accident. Every meeting is a lesson, every affection a blessing. Again, the importance of the people that are present in our lives, that sometimes we think they are important, sometimes we don't pay much attention to them, but all of them are important. If they are present in our lives, it's because it's relevant to our journey. This chapter, it's very interesting. I'm not going to go much further into it. talks about questions of gender, which is a subject so much in discussion these days. So the Spiritist Center group goes to a school to support a young man struggling with his own gender identity. And they discuss the question of gender. Simonetti explains very well the importance of us, of acceptance, of understanding, of knowing more about our journey as eternal spirits, that in order not to be to have prejudice, discriminations about anyone on any of their choices. They are all choices made based on their own journeys. So they are able to help these young men, and they're able to help the parents who are having a lot of difficulty in accepting this young boy choice. So this young boy, a boy, but felt like a girl throughout his life since he was born, and he was having a lot of trouble in dealing with this. Of course, there is a lot of discriminations, lots of persecutions. He felt a lot of issues. So it is a very good chapter 12, to read and study about gender for all those that want to learn more about this difficulty. Simonetti covers the subject very brilliantly, in my opinion. And he leaves a message for us here. Those who pray open windows in the soul through which the rays of divine love penetrate. So when we pray, we open ourselves to the help and assistance of the spiritual benefactors of God and all our loved ones. On this chapter, that is the story of a bedridden man being influenced by obsessors. He's kind of paralyzed. He's looking for assisted suicide. He wants to kill because the medicine kill himself, because medicine cannot find a solution to his problem. Through communications in the Spiritist Center, they receive messages that these are obsessors trying to force him to commit suicide, of course, because of past actions, past lives. And through conversations and through education, he's freed from these harmful influences, these obsessors, and he recovers completely. And he's also a doctor, goes back to work in the hospital. So Simonetti tells us that the servant of Christ seeks no reward. His or her joy is in being able to serve. Why is he telling us this? Because we have to remember that Jesus told us, do not let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. Meaning, when we are out there trying to help others, we shouldn't be looking for earthly rewards. We should be looking for our inner growth and our disposition of serving others, because it is what we have to learn, what have to become a part of ourselves. I always remember the famous story by Mother Teresa. When this reporter was interviewing her, she runs out suddenly. The reporter follows her. She goes to a pile of garbage, grabs an old man, puts in her lap, and the old man dies. The reporter tells about the smell, the ugliness of the scene, and he tells her, I couldn't do this even for $1 million. And she tells him, I couldn't do this also for $1 million, only for love. Love is a part of her. It's not something that she has to force herself. It becomes part of us as we evolve. That's what we are looking for. We are not there. We're far from there. But it's by serving others, by helping and assisting others, that eventually we are going to reach a stage where love is a part of us, is not something that we need to force ourselves to do. There is a very interesting conversation in this chapter about suicide bombers, how they the act as a suicide and murder motivated by these ideologies, illusory ideologies, and emphasizes the importance of Spiritism in combating fanaticism, which is the consequence of these ideologies that we follow, the blind faith that we think that only what we believe is right, what everyone else believes is wrong, and that creates this fanaticism that the chapter tells us. The dialogues reveals the importance of forgiveness and of spiritual education. Simonetti tells us that trials are not punishments, but lessons that God's love offers us so we may grow. Trials are opportunities for us to learn and to evolve. Expiations or atonements are consequences of our own past actions that we have to face the consequences. We live in a world of trials and atonements, so we have both in our lives, and how we react to them and how we face the trials and atonements of our lives is what gives us an opportunity to grow faster or more slowly towards our journey as eternal spirits. This chapter talks about a lady that goes to a Spiritist center and receives a beautiful mediumistic communication, and she recorded and she plays for them to listen, and they're very touched by the message. It's helping her overcome her pain, her suffering. Simonetti tells us, do not curse pain. It is the chisel that shapes the angel within you. So all of us have an angel, or the perfect spirit that we will be one day is already inside of us. We just have to chisel it, right? Is that like that famous phrase by Michelangelo, right? When someone asked him how he can build such beautiful images in marble, and he answers, the image is already there. I just remove the excess. So it is, the message for us is the perfection is already inside of us. We just need to find it, to address it, to chisel it, so we can become the perfect spirit that we all will be one day, and that is already inside of us. So this chapter, a suicide victim communicates through mediumship 2 years after his death and asks for help for his family, because his family was under a harassment from an exploiter. So they go to the family, they rescue the former wife and 2 daughters. They take them to the center for her to work as a worker in the center. She starts living in the center, taking care of the center, and is rescued from this exploiter. It's a very interesting chapter. Simonetti tells us that our neighbor's pain is God's call for us to turn feeling into action. Again, we have to act. We have to go out there and help those in need. And sometimes, again, this action sometimes is just go out there and listen. We don't need to say anything. Sometimes people need just to vent. They're struggling, they're suffering. And by venting, by telling us of what they are going through, they find their own solution, they find their own path. Sometimes they're not interested in what we have to say, and sometimes what we have to say is not going to help. So we need to be prepared to listen, to accept others' struggles and understand their needs and help if we can, but listen if that's all they need, and sometimes that's the best course of action. On this chapter, Susanna is moved by one of her students' essay, Lucas, and discovers that he is her nephew. the son of her brother Olavo, remember, that she thought committed suicide and didn't. In the end, she found that he did not commit suicide. He had died 15 years earlier. So she goes and visits Luca's mother and reveals that Olavo, he reveals to the mother that Olavo was actually murdered by his cousin who wished to marry her. Her cousin, not his cousin, sorry. Susana also tells her that Olavo is asking for her to visit and forgive her father because that is now gravely ill. She moved away from her city and moved to Sao Paulo, and Susana tells her to go and visit her father, and she goes knowing that what happened was not her father was to blame, but her cousin. And it's a very beautiful and interesting chapter. Simonetti tells us that life returns to a person what they give to the world with the precision of divine law and the tenderness of God, meaning everything that we face in life is a consequence of our own actions and consequence with our own path. On this chapter, José Maria, the cab driver, gets another passenger that asks him to drive this lawyer, asks him to drive him to a hotel where his wife is having an affair, and he's planning to go there to kill both of them and commit suicide, of course motivated by jealousy. But he receives a message from his daughter, discarnated daughter. He had lost his first wife and daughter, and José Maria, the medium, stops and starts giving the message from his daughter. Of course, he's very surprised. He never mentioned to anyone what he was planning to do, and he's completely in awe of what was going on, asks for an explanation, and José Maria explains that he's a medium. His daughter said some things that only his daughter would know. That's how he recognizes is his daughter. José Maria drives him to his home, gives him the spirit's book, tells him to read, gives him the address of the center, and of course is transformed by the encounter. One thing that is very interesting that José Maria mentions is that whenever he picks up a passenger, for him to be of assistance, of help, like he did with Susana, like he did with this lawyer, he never charges for it, because he says, it's not me, I'm just an instrument of work, so it's not fair that I would charge for the ride. So this is, in this case, is a very wealthy lawyer. Simonetti tells us to reform oneself is to exchange the shadows of the soul for the light of the gospel. We all carry these shadows in our lives that we struggle with, and when we replace the shadows with the light of the gospel, we allow the gospel to go inside of us, we evolve, we learn, and we find healing for ourselves. The next two chapters are a case of two quadriplegic people. This Demetrius, he tries to kill himself, fails, and becomes quadriplegic, and is very angry with everything, trying to find a way to kill himself, because he's quadriplegic, he cannot do it by himself. And the group visits the house, starts reading the gospel according to Spiritism, starts helping him, and helps him finally forgives himself and finally accept what he did. And eventually, not long after they help him, he discarnates and goes back to the spiritual world in a better state, as they talk, without having to spend time at the lower zones. And Simonetti reminds us that there is always someone on the other side of life rooting for us. Our loved ones that depart before us will be waiting for us, rooting for us, trying to help and assist us. We only have to pay attention. And the next chapter is also a woman that attempted suicide called Solange, but immediately after she receives assistance from Spiritist group, and she finds she also attempted suicide to a heartbreak like Susanna was thinking of, but she transformed herself very quickly, and she transforms her physical limitation into a work tool for good through social media. She starts being very active on Facebook, addressing people with the same thoughts, with the same inclinations that she had, and in a very positive way, she starts falling in love with a physical therapist that is helping her, and vice versa. So it's a way of facing the challenges of the situations that we find ourselves in front of us. The two chapters show the difference, the same situation faced with different points of view, with different dispositions. Simonetti tells us, love is God's language. Once you learn it, you never get lost. So in chapter 22, they talk about indirect suicide, so which is things that we do to ourselves that cause our life to shorten. If you remember Andre Luiz in the book No Solar, in the very beginning, spirits, when he's in the lower zones, call him suicide. He doesn't understand. He didn't commit suicide. He died of cancer, and he learns later, because of his lifestyle. His lifestyle contributed to his premature death. That's why he was being called indirect suicide. And in this case, is a patient who is in terminal with emphysema, and he already is at a stage that he understands the consequence of his actions, that he's going through what they call unconscious suicide brought about by his addiction. And they talk a little bit about the consequences, going back to the spiritual world, with this very spirit affected by what happened to what he did to himself, and that we would require a treatment, a prolonged treatment in the spiritual world. And in future reincarnations, he will face consequences also, respiratory limitations that will be designed to restrain his tendency to fall back into the same addiction. He will be tempted, because that's how we learn that if we really overcame the addictions, but he will have the ability to fight against it. Simonetti reminds us that faith does not dispense with reason, it enlightens us. Rational faith that Spiritism talks to us all the time. We have to understand why we have faith, why we believe. Blind faith, it's not what helps us, because if you have blind faith, you can change it if someone convinces you differently. If you have rational faith, nothing is going to change what you believe. And then you remember that Carlos was struggling with his wife's suicide. He blames himself. And it's very interesting, because, you know, he's a worker at the Spiritist Center. He's in close contact with José Maria, but he never received any message from his discarnated wife, right? He goes to give a talk in another Spiritist Center in another state. And there, when he's there, he receives a message through a medium that he never met in his life. He receives a message from his discarnated wife telling him to get rid of his guilt, that he was not responsible for what she did to herself, and that he's free to live his life. And it's very interesting, because we understand the importance of him receiving the message in a strange place, not in a strange place, but in another Spiritist Center. Because, of course, if he received the message through José Maria, he would doubt the message. because Jose Maria knows his story very well. So his wife giving a message through a complete stranger in a different Spiritist center, of course, in a serious Spiritist center, makes him more open to receive, accept, and believe that the message is coming from his discarnated wife. And this case symbolizes the power of love in the mediumistic work. Simonetti tells us that where there is love, there is light, and where there is light, there is God. So on his flight back, he has a chance, again, chance, that gives him an opportunity to help a potential suicide person. He sits on the airplane next to a person, a man. The man sees him reading the Spirit's book and asks him about the book and asks about what the book talks about suicide, because he has a friend that is thinking of committing suicide, and what is the vision of Spiritism in suicide. And Carlos talks to him throughout the trip. It's a 2-hour flight, more or less, from Porto Alegre to Sao Paulo. Talks about him, about what the Spiritism believes, and how Spiritism views the consequences of suicide and the responsibility. Gives him the Spirit's book after they separate, gives him the card for the Spiritist Center, and of course the man is transformed by reading the Spirit's book, like what happens to many of us when we first read the Spirit's book. Simonetti reminds us death is not the end, it's the door to a new beginning. So we just change clothes and go back to the spiritual world, but our life continues. Life goes on, which is the theme of our Spiritist Week here of the Tri-State. Life Goes On, which is also the book of the title of the last book of the Andre Luiz Collection, Life in the Spiritual World. And so we finished the last chapter of this book. Susana and Carlos finally are free to start the relationship. The conflicts, spiritual and human conflicts, are resolved harmoniously and transformed. Susana dedicates herself to helping those who suffer, concluding that to live is always the best choice. Simonetti reminds us that life is a blessing, and the greatest testimony of faith is living with gratitude. So, Loving Life, it's a book that delivers an uplifting anthem to the beauty and purpose of living, that even amid pain and challenges, there is always a loving purpose guiding us towards the light. So may each heart find in the gospel and in Spiritism the certainty that to live is the best path. Or as Simonetti leaves to us his last message, to live is the art of learning from God in each new dawn. For those that are interested in reading a book about suicide, but very uplifting, not difficult, a very beautiful novel, I highly recommend. It is available on the United States Spiritist Federation bookstore. The book in Portuguese, it's called O Melhor é Viver, also published with this from a local publisher in Brazil. Really worth. Beautiful work, light, and with this, I give back to you guys. I thank you for your attention today, and we go back to Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, João. What a beautiful book. I have not read it, so I have many of the Simonetti's books, but I have to get this one. Absolutely. Thank you. And I want to also thank everyone who's here with us today and those who join us on a weekly basis. Because it's important to learn together. But for those who are here, I appreciate your engagement and really want us to have this conversation. But before we start, João, I know we have a few minutes to answer some questions, and I saw several in the comments already. But I want to let everybody know that we have some comments, right? And we invite all of you to follow us on our social media channels and stay updated on the upcoming events. As you can see, you can follow through those various channels there. And the U.S. Spirits Federation is busy doing lots and lots of work, including this one. But let's also not forget to visit the USSF bookstore at spiritistbooks.us, where you can find just a wide selection of Spiritist books, including this one, right, Joan? And there's several new, exciting new releases there for anyone to get it. And if you work with Spiritist youth or interested in educational resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children's Spiritist Education, or FIXI, website at Spiritism Kids US, where you can discover amazing materials and ideas for those youth educators. And let us take a moment to check out the Be My Hope app, which offers inspiring daily messages to uplift our spirit. It is available for free on both App Store or Google Play. And on the screen, we should all note that there is this QR code. If you want to help the U.S. Spirits Federation produce more publications and promote Spiritism for everyone, scan the QR code on screen for your donation. And I'd like to, at this point, turn our attention to our comments, our questions, and there's still time. Go ahead and submit yours and share thoughts. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, Joan, are you ready? We have one for you saying, Joan, you mentioned that Simonetti begins by reminding us that life itself is the greatest blessing God has entrusted to us. How does recognizing life as a sacred divine gift reshape the way we face moments of despair or deep emotional pain?
I think the knowledge that Spiritism brings to us, right? Because understanding that we are spirits living an eternal life, that
Mhm,
the challenges we face are opportunities to grow, the pain that we go through are opportunities of learning. Of course, it's very easy to say, it's not very easy to put in practice.
mhm,
But if we have the conscience that everything is there for a reason, that is an opportunity for us to grow, an opportunity for us to learn, and resort to prayer, to patience, to active resignation, we can face the challenges. Not that they are not going to be difficult, and we are not here trying to minimize any suffering,
mhm,
because each one of us goes through personal suffering, personal pain, and they are part of our journey, and they are difficult. But knowledge helps us face these challenges, and
mhm,
not only understanding us, our nature as eternal spirits, but truly believing in it. Because we truly believe that we are eternal spirits, that this becomes part of who we are in our eternal journey, we may face difficulties. life continues. We go back to the spiritual world, regardless
Yes,
of
yes,
what happens. So
yes,
uh,
absolutely.
learning and educating ourselves will give us courage and strength. And remember, prayer. Prayer is the best available tool that we have to face our challenges and difficulties.
It reminds me of what you said, which is an anecdotal story about Mother Teresa, right? And for her, serving is became natural, became something that it's irrefutable. You do that first, and then maybe have an interview with a reporter. And I think for us is let us maybe be reminded of that and practice those things that are important, right? Including prayer, including faith, including those interpretation of what life is, eternal life that is, or immortal life that is.
Yes.
So let's see if we have another question. All right. Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for your question. Daniel is asking, what ways might surviving a suicide attempt shift a person's perspective on what truly matters, especially in a world filled with conflict and division?
Yeah. Thanks, Danielle. Those two chapters that Simonetti talks about the quadriplegic people, right? It's one changing, shifting a person's perspective in the case of Solange, and on the other one, not shifting a
Mhm.
person's perspective, right? So it's a personal thing, but most people that fail to commit suicide have an opportunity to reevaluate their choices, to reevaluate their problems, and to analyze if that was really what was the solution they were looking for. And many people find through religion, not only through spiritism but all kinds of faith religion, the answer for what they are looking for. For some people, we hear cases of people that attempt suicide more than once, right? And um, and there is the issue that these people are really cannot overcome these impulses, right?
Mhm.
And many times they end up succeeding. Or and So I think every time we someone fails in an attempt to commit suicide, is an opportunity that God is giving them to reevaluate, to reassess what they have been doing, the reasons, and to learn and grow from that. Do
Yeah,
everyone is going to take this opportunity? Not necessarily, but many people will take this opportunity and will be helped by their own failures and again, it's the wrong word, right? Because I
yeah.
think when you attempt suicide and you not succeed, it's success, it's not failure. It's a
I love it.
success to
Yeah.
continue living, right?
Y- y-
Because we call failure is not failure.
Yeah.
Failure
I
is
love it.
failure
I
is really to commit suicide and go back to the spiritual world, as and life continues.
yeah. I personally know a couple of people, João, and I remember specifically one person that the entire medical staff said, "You're a miracle. It's impossible for you to have survived." And it's very interesting because it did change this person's life, right? It completely, just changed completely what was right or wrong. But anyways, let's see if we have another question, if we have a little bit more time. How can family members and friends become sources of light without minimizing someone's suffering? It's a very delicate question, so thank you, whoever sent that.
I think the short answer is be there,
Yeah.
right? Each one that is going through this, uh, again, there are two different cases, right? The families and friends of those that try to commit suicide and did not succeed, and those that committed suicide,
Mhm.
family of those that commit suicide and and succeeded and kill themselves, really, right? In the book of Andre Trigueiro, which is another book that talks about suicide,
Yeah.
says that each person that attempts or commits suicide affects directly six other person, at least six other people at least, right? So you
Mhm.
these actions cause much more harm than we think, because it affects a lot of people, right? Because
Mhm.
members of the family may struggle for a very long time. So we need to be able to provide what they need, because we have a tendency, especially those that start studying spiritism and find the answers in spiritism, we have the
Mhm.
tendency of, and to go out there and try to give our solutions, but sometimes it's not what they need. They need to, for us to be present, to listen to them, to comfort them, to pray with
Mhm.
them, anything
Mhm.
that can help
Mhm.
alleviate their pain. And we shouldn't try to to find the solution for them. We need to help them find their own solution for their
Mhm.
pain, their suffering. So we need to be, yes, sources of light, but being available to what they need, not to what we think they need.
Yeah, André Trigueiro's book, I believe, I have both versions, but the original was in Portuguese and it's been translated in English. Is I think life is the best option,
Living is the best choice.
and it's very interesting because it starts with addressing how to even discuss suicide. I don't know if you remember that book, João. And
Yeah,
so it's very interesting for anyone out there who knows, and I think most of us know at least one person uh, who is undergoing a lot of pain, a lot of difficulties. So it's a good source as well.
yeah,
And I
I
think we have in the comments the URL for Simonetti's book. So I can't wait until I can go ahead and click the link to get the book myself.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
actually, the book of Trigueiro, I did a revision of the translation. So
Did
yeah,
you?
yes,
Awesome. Awesome.
the book is called "Living is the Best Choice."
Living is the best choice. Sorry for the change in my mind. And Joao Korngold, right, also wrote a book. I believe. I think the title
Yes,
was "Those Left
those
Behind,"
left
which,
behind. Yes,
yeah, yeah, I read many years ago, and it's also very another very good source on the subject.
and she did a translation of this book of Simonetti. "Loving Life" was her translation.
Oh,
Yes,
wow, wow, very good for both of you. Thank you for the work, for the service you're providing to all of us. Let's see if we have another question. Yes. Are there signs indicating that a person may be silently asking for help? And if so, what are the most common ones? I don't know if Simonetti's book brought that up, Sean, or if you know
no,
those.
it doesn't.
Mm,
But and it's difficult because sometimes sometimes we can't find the signs, right?
mhm.
Uh, but our responsibility is to pay attention, right?
Yes.
Changes
Yeah.
of behavior, changes of attitudes, lo- loss of interest in things that used to bring interest in for the person. So if um, they used to like a lot something or be interested, be active, and suddenly they withdraw themselves. People that withdraw themselves isolate themselves. We have to be attentive to these signs, but you know, it's each person is their own world, right? So sometimes it surprises us completely, um, and we try to look for signs, But the important thing is we have to try not to feel guilty if we fail to see the signs, because for two reasons. First, sometimes we cannot see the signs. There are no signs. And second, we have to accept our own imperfections, our own limitations. We are not, many times we are not equipped with the ability to understand and to see the signs. We don't work in this professional field, many of us. We don't learn the how to deal with signs, and many times most of us were focused on our own issues, our own problems, and it doesn't exempt us to pay attention to what's happening around us. But we cannot blame ourselves for if we couldn't see. We have to try to understand the reasons, try to grow from them, because blame only keeps us stuck in our own ways, doesn't help us move forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And from what I would say, the change of behavior, Joan, it is either spectrum, right? So if I'm an introverted person and all of a sudden I become really the opposite, maybe there's a trigger there. Or if I've been sad for years and years and there's a sudden happiness, and this is from memory now on Trigueiro's book, it may mean that the person made a decision. It's like all the worry that I'm going through, the root cause of my pain is going to be done because of the false idea that I will be able to stop that. So either way, just let us pay attention. Let's be loving to all of us. I think we have time for one more question, João, and then we'll go on to close. And the question is, can you talk about why emotional pain creates the illusion that there is no future beyond suffering, and what spiritual perspectives can help us counter that illusion?
Sometimes when we are going through difficulties in our lives, the emotional pain, as they ask here in the question, we have trouble seeing a way out. We have trouble seeing beyond the pain, right? Even sometimes, even among spiritists, right? When we have this, we have depression, we have spiritual obsessions, we have difficulties in dealing with our own emotional pain, there is this tendency to look, to not be able to look beyond what's happening, right? And when something like that happens, there are two things, right? Don't be afraid to ask for help, because many times we don't have the tools to deal with our own emotional pain. We need external help, professional, friends, family. Many people are embarrassed to ask for help. Do not be embarrassed. Ask for help. This is something that we all go through. We all have different types of emotional pain, and we all have the ability to help others if we are asked for, or to ask for help. We have friends, family, professional places, spiritist centers, anyone. So let's not try to face the challenges by ourselves. Let's not try to isolate ourselves in our own pain, because this cannot, in many times, cannot solve the issues, only aggravates the issues, only make it more difficult. So a combination of prayer and asking for help, spiritual perspectives, of course, the knowledge of us being eternal spirits, it's an important tool. that helps. Education, knowledge helps a lot. But we need to be able to apply the knowledge to our daily lives, because only knowledge that is not applied to our daily lives do not help us grow. Knowledge is very important, but it needs to be applied to our daily lives. And applying to our daily lives is not being afraid of asking for help when we need.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to say this is a topic that is very, very difficult for all of us. And to anyone out there, if you are in pain, please note your life is not a mistake, right? Your story is not over. So all of us are immortal beings, and we're here, as Simonetti, I'm sure, is saying in his book and his topics, that we're all destined to live, to grow, to heal, to evolve. So hold on, there is help, there is hope, and we're all here for you. But I want to say thank you. Thank you, João. Sorry for that. I'm very emotional. And heartfelt thanks to everyone who's been here with us in this live talk. And as I mentioned before, those who are following us on a weekly basis, it's really important for us. Please note, we will pause next Saturday due to the holiday in the United States, but we invite you to join us the following Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the upcoming live session where Cynthia Fabretti will explore the topic of moral transformation, as you see on the screen. I really look forward to all of our participation at that time. João, before you close, could you please share maybe additional remarks or lead us with a closing prayer, sir?
Sure. Just a reminder, there is a phone that you can call here in the US for suicide help, right? That is anonymous, that you can call. I don't know exactly the number, but it's 1-888-HELP or something like that. I don't remember. But there is a phone that you can call for help. So let us keep our thoughts elevated. Thank the spiritual benefactors for this wonderful opportunity of being united for study, for learning. Let us try to put in practice in our daily lives everything that we have received. Let us send these vibrations of love, of peace, of fraternity to all our brothers and sisters in need, our family, our friends, all those throughout the world that are struggling with diseases, with wars, with persecutions and discriminations, with thoughts of suicide, with thoughts of harming others, that they may all receive these blessed energies of love to overcome their challenges, to find hope, to find active resignation, and to, above all, find faith to overcome their challenges. We thank the spiritual benefactors and our Master Jesus once more for this wonderful opportunity of being here. We ask for protection throughout the week, and we ask permission to close our meeting. So be it.